Okay, Gretz, thank you for joining us. So the whole idea of me doing this talk was obviously I wanted to find out from a Belgian Air Force F-16 display pilot what it was like flying and more about their pilot, flying career. But more importantly, obviously, growing up, the F-16 display was quite important to me. It was part of my child growing up into aviations and stuff. So I was quite upset and disappointed, knowing that obviously the Belgium F-16 display is no longer going to be appearing in the UK circuit. So as a bit of a tribute, I wanted to speak to a former pilot like yourself. So I'd just like you, in your own time, to tell us about your flying career, what it was like flying the F-16, and what you're doing now. And then when you're finished, we'll ask questions.
Sure. So yeah, start off. So I'm Major Renaud GRAT Thijs. I am currently employed in the RCAF. We'll get to that. So how it all started, always wanted to be a pilot as far as I can remember. My flying career started with the Air Cadets in Belgium in 1999. Did the gliding program, and then after that, I had joined the Air Force as a pilot in 2001. Was on 17 September 2001. So the moment I joined, I was like, I guess I'll go to Afghanistan at some point in my career. So training happened for me in Belgium. Flew the SF-260 Marchetti out of the base of Beauvechain, center Belgium, and then onto the Alpha Jet. I was part of the first class that did the French-Belgian Alpha Jet training system in France, in Cazaux. We started that in 2004. And then in 2005, I went to fly the F-16 at the conversion unit in Kleine in Belgium. So soloed the 16 in April of 2005. It was right before my 22nd birthday. And then from there, I started with 350, so 350 fighter squadron based in Florennes. Stayed with 350 squadron for 10 years, and as part of that squadron, deployed to a whole bunch of missions. So did some air policing based in Lithuania, some more based in Poland, and then I was part of all the bigger operations. So Afghanistan was there 5 times between 2008 and 2014. Did 2 tours for Libya in 2011. Did 2 tours for Iraq, Syria in 14-15. And then at the end of 2015, I left the Belgian Air Force. And I'll get to that later. I was the demo pilot between 2012 and 2014. So I was really fortunate to do some really cool air shows. Did the 70th anniversary of the Patrouille de France in Salon-Provence. RIAT multiple times, basically every year, including the 2014 edition, which was the 40th anniversary of the Viper. It was a really great time. And in 2014, I won the Douglas Bader Trophy in RIAT. Other things that I remember, did an air show in Bardufoss, Norway in 2013, Midnight Sun Air Show. Great spot, like absolutely crazy environment to display. Lots of seaside air shows in the UK as well. I did Eastbourne, for example. Um, other other spots. We did a lot of UK air shows, so I'm probably going to forget some. But Yeovilton, pretty much every year. Did a Waddington Air Show. I want to say it was 2013. My very first air show was actually Duxford. That was awesome. And from there, yeah, ended the season early. Again, it's kind of a theme with the Belgian Air Force, I guess, in 2014 because my squadron was going to Iraq, Syria. So stopped my demo season. I want to say it was in early September because in October I was flying from Jordan for Iraq and Syria. So after all that was done, I was kind of at a fork in the road in my career in Belgium. had to make a decision, either stay much longer or choose to find something else to do. And the something else to do that I found is that the RCF was hiring experienced fighter pilots to plus up their pilot cadre, because they're facing some pretty stringent personnel shortages right now. Everyone's flying for the airlines, and so they offered me a job. I took it. Did 3 years at the air staff in Winnipeg, and then after that went on to fly the Hornet at 409 Fighter Squadron here in Cold Lake, Alberta. Did that for 2 years. With 409 Squadron, we deployed to Romania for air policing right at the border with a place called Ukraine at the end of 2021. You can imagine it was a little bit tense. And then I came back. When I came back, it was time for me to move on because I became a major. And every 2 years, I got to find a new job because otherwise I get too good at it. So I'm now here at 419 Fighter Squadron, which is a Phase 4 training squadron flying the Canadian version of the BAE Hawk. We train fighter lead-in training pilots. So basically, the guys who come from a Phase 3, they know how to fly a jet, and we teach them how to fight a jet, and then they move on to fly the Hornet. Interesting fact about our squadron, it's actually closing at the end of the week, and it's going to go dormant until Canada purchases a new training aircraft and sets up a fighter leading program again. So we're getting ready for those ceremonies, and then we'll move all our jets to their final resting place, which is still to be determined, but somewhere east of here. And then my next job, I'm going to go back to flying the Hornet as part of 410 Fighter Squadron, which is our operational conversion unit. So where we take those same pilots we just trained and then train them on the Hornet. And I'll be the operations officer over there starting in May. Yeah, so that is me in a nutshell. Talking about my time as the demo pilots for the 16. I wanted to do things a little bit different from my predecessor. So those of you might remember that my predecessor was Mitch Bullen. Flew a really, really amazing jet. It was painted like in the dark blues with kind of like a wavy design and things like that. And so I flew the second jet that was going to be a fully painted demo jet. So I contacted other designers. I wanted my jet to be very Belgian. So big roundel on it, a little bit of a more abstract design. And I decided that for the show, the demo itself, what I wanted to do was kind of go back to the roots of the first F-16 demos. So I looked at the programs of the early guys, slow speed, power, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the sorry, I almost said Hornet. A lot of the Viper demos did a lot of like high rate of turns, high G, that kind of things. I wanted to have that, but I wanted also to exploit basically the big engine that we have on that jet and the ability that we have to fly slow, stay close to the crowd, and give it a lot of noise. So that's kind of how I went. The good thing in Belgium, we have 3 years to get comfortable and keep developing new maneuvers. So on my first year, I had a sequence that was all right, but it was manageable for the level that I had. But over year 2 and year 3, I started introducing new things and did some interesting stuff. On year 3, I'm probably the only one who ever did that. For example, I did an inverted half Cuban level off. So if you would imagine, you see what a half Cuban is, the jet just goes like this. That's all positive, and then normally you will roll upright and then recover it. So if rolling upright, I would just push negative and level it off at 500 feet. Something that used to be done on an old Alpha Jet demo that I saw, talked to the guy, and he was like, hey, that'd be really cool. I'm like, I think we can do it. And well, actually, it works, so that's good. Still here. So that was that. Yeah, lots of really fun times. I have some great memories from my time as a demo pilot. And yeah, in the meantime, like I said, like a lot of other things, a lot of other experiences out here in Canada, completely different environment. Extremely large airspaces, very big country, and a completely different mission set from the NATO quick reaction alert type things that we have at home. And here we're talking about like NORAD missions that have way longer flight times, greater distances, and weather conditions that are really challenging at times. I was talking to Matt yesterday. We did a bit of a com check. We had been in a blizzard for 24 hours. We got about a foot and a half of snow in 12 hours, and frigid temperatures, minus 25, minus 30. Tonight, it's going to be minus 39 with wind chill, just to give you an idea. And that's just a Monday here. Like it's one of these where you really learn to operate with the environment, and learn to just roll with the punches, because you never know what's going to happen. So really interesting experience. So yeah, so that's me. I think the best thing to do now is see if you guys have any questions, and then I'll keep talking.
I'm sure we'll get some people who've got some questions coming in, but I'll start off first. So out of the F-16 and the F-18, obviously, performance-wise, completely different aircraft, but which one did you enjoy flying the most, and why?
So, believe it or not, I get that question a lot. The I would say two things without going into too much like technical detail. The 16 and the 18 were part of the same project, right? The YF-16, YF-18. The way that they went about maneuverability, because that was the requirement for that generation of aircraft, was completely different. So the F-16 was a 9G jet, extremely high rate of turn, which means that it will go around the circle really quickly. Whereas an F-18 has a high AOA capability. So not that much of a G monster as the F-16, 7.5 G maximum, but the amount of nose travel that you will get in a very short time is pretty impressive. So whereas the F-16 will go around the circle really quickly, the F-18 will stay inside of that same circle and turn its nose really fast, right? So both of those have pluses and minuses. The main drawback with the F-18 is that you will use a lot of your kinetic and potential energy and just basically turn that into that instantaneous nose position. So you lose a lot of speed, basically. You trade speed for nose position, whereas the F-16 keeps its speed and just goes around and around and around. As far as fun of flying, the one thing I'll say is that the F-16 is way more comfortable. The reclined seats, the side stick, all that kind of stuff, like your office is a lot more comfortable. The F-18 is a more traditional cockpit configuration, so center stick, pretty much a chair as your seat, and the cockpit is like roomier, but it's not organized as well, so you feel a little bit more cramped in there. Plus, we fly with cold weather gear that's absolutely like just massively, it's very fluffy, very thick. So when you're all decked up to go flying in minus 30, there's no room at all. The main thing, the really cool stuff with the Hornet is like I said, that instantaneous nose authority. That's amazing. The fact that it doesn't matter what speed you're at or what you're doing, you have really good use of the rudder, so you can basically just turn around and pirouette and do all those crazy maneuvers that the F-16 doesn't have. You can't even try that at all. Like you would stall the engine and whatnot. The other cool thing is, so I got to refuel the Air Force way with the F-16, where you basically just wait for the tanker to connect. And now with the F-18, you refuel the Navy way, where you just go and hunt for the basket yourself. Refueling the Navy way is a lot less efficient, but it's a lot more fun because you're actually like fighting for it. So I'd say, yeah, there's pluses and minuses. the interesting difference as well is that the Hornet is a twin engine fighter versus a single engine. That leads you into all kinds of other considerations as far as your emergencies and things like that. Like there are times where it actually feels good to have another engine.
Cool. Thanks for answering that. And I've got a question now from Robert Thomas.
Hiya, very interesting flying career so far. Loads of questions probably, but the first one, did I get the impression that you designed the scheme on the F-16 for the display years that you were doing that? Is that right? Or
Yeah, I worked very closely with the designers, and I had a really good idea of what I wanted. My drawing skills aren't that great, so I didn't exactly design it, but I had a like a very close. Yeah, there you go, that guy. Had a very close say in what it was going to look like. Yeah.
yeah, that must have been quite cool as well for displaying certainly in your own country. Being the Belgian display pilot, flying in a scheme that you helped design, that must have been quite a feeling to be in that situation. That must be quite unique, really, because most display pilots over here, they won't choose the plane design at all. They've just be given a jet and display it, kind of thing. So yeah, can't
Oh yeah,
imagine
it was great. Like, I mean, I'll be honest with you, from the inside, it looks exactly the same, so I had no idea what it looked like. Uh, but no, I was really happy with the color scheme and the job that the paint crew on base did and everything. I think it was very, very different, and I really liked the way it looked. So
yeah, thank you, and thank you for bringing the jet over to RIAT. I did see you in some European countries as well, but always a fantastic display and well deserved winning the Bader Sword as well. So, and do you still have that with you with you now in Canada, or?
no, so whenever you get the trophy, you get to keep it for a year, displayed at the
Okay.
squadron, and then afterwards you return it for the next guy to win it. Now I have a certificate, pictures, whatever, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, fair play. Thank you.
Thanks.
So before we get more questions in, the selection process of becoming the Belgian Air Force F-16 pilot, display pilot, did you sort of put your name in the hat, or do you get sort of picked, sort of thing? How does it go?
Yeah, so basically that, yeah, there's a very military message comes out like, hey, we're looking for somebody to be candidate for position number XYZ, which is the display pilot. It has to be recommended by your CO. Then it goes to a selection board. You just go to Brussels, talk to a colonel and a few advisors for about an hour. They ask you a bunch of questions, see how your public speaking is and what kind of motivations you have, and look at your CV, and then from there they make a decision. My year, I think there were like 3 or 4 other candidates. Usually, it's like each squadron puts one name forward, and then the selection happens. Um, the um, the position of display pilot is interesting because it's a lot of time away from home, and so there usually aren't that many candidates. It's not like there's 20 people who want to do it. It's pretty intense during the summer. And my years when I was a demo pilot, I would fly the demo during the summer, but then I would deploy to Afghanistan in the winter. So I wasn't home much.
It takes a lot of sacrificing and taking all your time and stuff for that, especially if it's summer and then going out in the winter. So a lot of hard work.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fine. You kind of know it going in. At the time, I didn't have kids, so it was a lot easier for me than for other guys. And then the other thing was like I like doing it. Like I volunteered for it, and it was a great experience. But yeah, it takes quite a bit of work.
Cool. I'm still waiting for people's questions to come in, so I'm going to ask mine that I usually do. So my questions usually are, is I always ask the pilot sort of what's been their most challenging moment in their career, and what was the highlight of their career. So they kind of bounce off each other.
Yeah. Most challenging. I would say. Hmm. I would say it was probably both the most challenging and the highlight. I was flying over southern Afghanistan. We were supporting a UK, I want to say they were Royal Marines unit, over a town called Marja. So it's in southern Afghanistan. It was in an opium-rich region, so very heavy Taliban presence there. And it was the first time that a unit tried to actually go into that town. What happened there? We were there from the very beginning, around 5 in the morning, when they started their movement from their base to that town. And around 6:30 in the morning, they were under a very heavy fire. I could hear through the radio, talking to the JTAC, I could hear the fire. So mortars, RPGs, small arms, the works. For those who've seen Black Hawk Down, think of that. And so me and my wingman were over that area. So it happened that my wingman had no comms with the guys on the ground. So I took over, started coordinating with them, told my wingman to start bringing in additional assets like tankers, drones, more flying assets, and that kind of stuff. We ended up having to give them fire support inside a heavily built-up urban area, which is very, very challenging. And at one point, I ended up having to basically strafe down Main Street in that town of Marja. We were pretty much stuck there trying to support them as much as we could until 2 Apaches showed up. And they're the ones who actually calmed down the situation, brought in stallions, extracted the guys, they left. The whole action lasted about 6 hours. And then we still had to go back and land in Kandahar. So extremely challenging because it was very, very hard. At one point, I thought that my JTAC was actually dead. He stopped talking to me. It turned out that his radio just got hit and he couldn't speak anymore. And then, but extremely rewarding in the sense that we saved these guys. Like they were in a really bad situation, and it's one of those examples. And I tell the young guys here sometimes when we start teaching them close air support and stuff like that, close air support is one of the most rewarding missions you can have because you have a direct influence, and you directly support somebody you're talking to on the radio at that time. So yeah, came back to Kandahar, debriefed, and then went straight to bed. But yeah, that'd be that. At the same time, the most challenging and the most rewarding time in my career, I'd say.
Cool, thank you very much. I've now got a question of Todd.
Yep. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for letting us ask some questions for you. I'm a retired Air Force guy myself. Got 2 questions for you. First one is, what did you think culturally going from the Belgian Air Force to the Canadian Air Force? How much of a transition was that, both like professionally, like how the tactics and how they use their Air Force and this and that, and then personally as well? That's the first question I got.
Yeah, so I'll start with the personal side. When we decided to move to Canada, it was definitely a family decision. It was driven by a job offer I got from the Canadian Air Force, but it was also very much a family project to go move to Canada and all that. So personally, what I found is so Canada is a really welcoming country. People are really warm there. It's been great. It's been interesting because, of course, coming from Belgium, I'm in Western Canada, so I'm not in French-speaking Canada. I'm from French-speaking Belgium. So language was a little bit something for me. Not unsurmountable. My wife is from the States. She's from California, so a lot easier for her than when she moved to Belgium and lived there for 10 years. But then the weather was a definite shock. First time we saw anywhere below -25 on the thermometer, we're like, oh well, yeah, we're here. And just all of little things. I always say that, and it's the same. I'll say the same thing for Canada or the United States. Is like North America is the same but different if you compare it to Europe. A
Oh,
lot of the
yes.
culture, everything is similar. We watch the same shows on TV and pretty much drink the same beer, but there are those little differences, and they're fun. They're interesting, and I really enjoy it. Professionally, what was really interesting on the Canadian side was much closer integration with the United States than what we had even in Belgium. Just like I said, the sheer size of the country was something to wrap my head around. When I started at the air staff, a lot of the things I did there was coordinate missions movements across the United States and Canada, and also all the NORAD operations basically facing north. And just realizing that it will take you about 4 hours to reach the north. And it's not the northern tip of Canada. That's just the start of the Arctic Ocean. And then from there, you're nowhere. Yeah, that is really interesting. And the fact that, yeah, you need tankers for everything. There are no bases anywhere. Everything's frozen. Reason why we have Hornets is that in a lot of places where we'll land when we're forward deployed, we will land just like on a carrier. Just basically land, take a cable, because otherwise you just can't break. The runway's ice. It's too short anyway. So yeah, pretty cool.
It sounds like Bardufoss every day. I've been into Bardufoss as well, and I couldn't imagine doing a display over that runway, but especially with that steep approach on the one end there.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
I approached from there. I got there, and the weather was like awful, totally awful, like rain, mist, whatever. And they brought me in from that end to do that steep approach onto the runway, and I was like, well, I hope they know what they're doing, because I have no idea where I'm at.
It's eye-opening, and with that display threshold, it's quite a challenge to get on that. So I think it's in the east when you land to the east. But yeah, no. And thank you for that. I very much appreciate what you're saying, because I did an exchange tour with the RAF from the USAP, so I know the cultural differences. Like you say, it's just enough to be different that it's confusing sometimes, but fun.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
And then my last question, if that's all right, just a quick one. I worked with a Canadian Hornet guy my last job. You might know him. He just retired last year. His name's James Todd. Quack is his call sign.
Oh, I know the name, and I've never met him. Yeah.
You can't miss him. He's a very loud, rather large Canadian, though. He's retired now, but he was a good Hornet guy as well. So, but anyways, hey, that's all I got. I don't want to take anybody else's time, but it's nice to speak to you. So thanks.
No, thanks a lot.
So I've got a question to ask on behalf of one of our viewers here, and she was asking basically, when you was the F-16 display pilot, did you have a favourite place to display at, and which was your favourite manoeuvre?
So I would say the favorite spot was my home base. You always have a soft spot for home shows, and but then outside of that, I think probably one of the most amazing spots I got to display at, apart from Bardufoss, which had its own challenges, but I actually got to do an evening display on the Athens harbor, and that was really special. Flew from Tanagra, north of Athens, all the way over the Acropolis at sunset, and then turned in and just started doing loops to music in the middle of Pierce Harbor that had been there for 3,000 years, and you're like, oh, well, this is interesting. You don't do that every day. Favorite maneuver. So it's a combination that I really enjoyed flying. So I would come in for a slow speed high alpha pass. From that high alpha, light the burners, get the jet on its tail up to almost vertical, 60 degrees. Roll. As I roll, the jet would fall on a wing. Start a 360 tight turn from that speed. So I would say about 90 knots. By the end of that, the jet would be at 250 knots, and that's stick full back the entire time. Then pull it up into a loop, end up the loop at now 350 knots, go into a steep 60-degree nose up climb, split S it, and at the end of the split S, I'd be at 600 knots. And that, I think, was like the true demonstration of the power of that jet. Like how much extra thrust you have at that low weight, at the close to the tail end of the demo, that you can just be like stick full back the entire time, and the jet just keeps accelerating through maneuvers.
Cool. And someone that can't obviously speak at present asked me to ask another question, which was, what has been your favorite aircraft type out of all those you've flown, whether it's, training and what you've been doing? And if you had an opportunity to fly any modern or historic aircraft, what would you choose?
Yeah, so I flew 2,300 hours on the F-16, right? And I only flew about 300 hours on the Hornet. So the jet I would be most comfortable flying would be the 16 compared to the Hornet. Probably 5 years from now, I will tell you if I now like the Hornet better. But to be entirely honest, I would say my favorite jet was probably the 16. Now, looking at past and present aircraft, what I would love to be able to fly, I would say either an F-14 or a flanker. Just one of those, just very like totally iconic airplanes. The F-14, just because it's an F-14, everyone's seen Top Gun, and it's just that beautiful pure fighter jet. And the flanker, just we train, to fight the flankers. They're our baseline threat. They're our big enemy. But I would love to actually fly one, see what it's really like.
Cool, thank you very much for that. And I believe Neil's got a question now.
Yeah, good evening. Just a quick question about the Hawks. Because obviously, have you had the similar problem to the RAF with the engine problems? And is it possibility that the Canadians could sell their Hawks to us because we need them?
So we use the same engines. So whatever issues the rest of the global Hawk fleet has had with the engines, we basically have the same. So our engines are the same as the Hawk T1 engines. So we don't have the newer T2 ones. And it's a single engine airplane. Like if you lose the engine, you're all of a sudden a lot less happy. The plan right now for our Hawks is still kind of in flux. But I don't think we're selling them to the UK right now. I'm told they are for sale if you're interested, but we're still waiting for the last delivery plans for them.
Thank you very much.
So until we get more questions coming in, my question is, did you obviously ever like flying at night? So the difference between flying at daytime and nighttime, which was your preference?
So it's quite interesting. Most of my operational flying, Afghanistan, Libya, and Iraq, Syria, was actually at night. And what I always say is that basically the West wins at night. The level of comfort you're required to have flying at night under NVG, and the advantage it gives you on the battlefield is incredible. Your enemies are not prepared for night operations. A lot of things are in a way easier to see at night, whether it's on infrared or on night vision. And the other interesting thing, if you think of battlefields like Afghanistan, Iraq, or even Libya, is that you operate in very close proximity to civilians, and they tend to be a lot more static at night, which makes your job a lot easier when you look at collateral damage, because they're not usually families out and about at 2 in the morning. The guys that are out and about at 2 in the morning either have a very good reason to be there, or you can easily identify why they're there and why they're not a target. So I always emphasize that to our students when we start our night flying program here at 419 Squadron, and then later on at 410 when we train them on the on night vision goggles. Is like, yeah, you have to start getting good at night flying. I feel rather comfortable at night. I can say that I've reached an experience level where I'm probably safe enough flying at night. The main thing flying with night vision goggles is I'll tell the guys, you will get comfortable flying with these after 25 hours, but it will take you about 100 hours to be proficient. So during those 75 hours, you're the most dangerous pilot out here, because you have the impression that you're seeing the world as if in daytime, but you're just seeing it very, very differently. It's shades of green. You have no depth perception. There are things you can see way better than during the day. There's a lot of things you can't see at all. And so that's about being really, really patient and really, really careful, I would say, when you start flying at night under NVG.
Cool. And obviously you've worked with other NATO countries and stuff, like NATO partners, even if it's not a NATO country, but a partner. What's been your favorite NATO country that you've worked with, that you've really thought, you know, hospitality, just generally, you know, professionalism, etc. What have you found that was really, you know, stood out for you?
So one thing I got to do when I was flying the Belgian demo, I got to do a two-ship demo flight with the French Rafale. So we had a really, really tight relationship between the two teams throughout our display seasons, so much so that we ended up flying a formation demo with dissimilar aircraft, which doesn't happen very often. The amount of paperwork involved was staggering, as you can imagine, but it happened. So that was really cool. So I've always really, really liked working with France. The language barrier, of course, is one of the things. It's non-existent for Southern Belgians like us. They treat us like their little brothers / ugly cousins, but that's fine. The other nation that really impressed me was probably Poland. The amount of if you look at where they came from and like being like a post-Soviet country and the amount of investment they've made into their military, their training, their doctrines and everything, it's really impressive. And I started flying with them probably in 2005, 2006, and then did my last air policing mission there in 2015. Just the amount of ground they've covered in that time is incredible. So they're one of those countries, I would say, that really took NATO integration to heart and just went like full on with it. Looking at like really high levels of like professionalism, like high levels of training effectiveness and everything, from both Belgium and Canada. I would say the United States and the UK, our two partners, are like the most effective militaries in NATO by pretty far, each with their own specialties and their own, like, sometimes idiosyncrasies, let's say. But the great thing from both Belgium or Canada was that with nations like the UK or the United States, you get into a level of like seamless integration. The NATO procedures, the NATO system, whatever tactics we're flying, they're all made so that we can just like really easily integrate with those structures, and that's great. And I think as someone coming from a smaller NATO partner, seeing that our training is set up so that we can do that even as a very junior air crew, that's really cool.
Cool, because I remember hosting a talk, one of my first talks actually, near the time with a Belgian Air Force crew that flew the C-130, and they said one of them said Great Britain, one of them said Poland, and I can't remember what the other one said, but two of the guys that did prefer Poland, they said because of the beer and women. So it was and how friendly and the hospitality and stuff. So it's, you know, you're not the first pilot we've had that's obviously mentioned Poland as well, because obviously how far they've come and stuff. So it's quite interesting.
It's crazy, yeah. And yeah, I can't speak for the beer because I'm from Belgium. We have the best beer.
Hang on, talking of that, I've got a Stella here that says Belgium on it.
There you go.
So
I always say, like, I really appreciate that people drink Stella. it is not the beer we drink in Belgium, just like Australians don't drink Foster's.
Yeah, they don't.
But of all the beers you can choose, it's definitely better than Heineken.
Exactly. Okay, we've actually got a few questions off people now. So we've got Todd again first.
There we go. Yeah, just I guess kind of a technical one, but since you've flown the Viper and the Hornet, have you had the opportunity to do a bit of DACT from both sides? So like when you're in the Viper, did you get to fight the Hornet, and then in the Hornet, did you get to fight the Viper?
So fun thing, the only time I fought the Hornet in the Viper was during a TLP exercise, and we were fighting the Swiss Hornets. They were our opposition during a TLP. So we never actually BFM them. There's no real dogfighting involved. It was all like long range BVR type stuff. The main thing that I really enjoyed is when we were in Romania with the Canadians. I got to fly the Hornet against the Romanians flying F-16s, and the F-16s the Romanians are flying our former Portuguese jets. So they're the exact same jets we flew in Belgium. So that was really cool. I want to say that if I had to go into a within visual range engagement, pure BFM, I would pick the Hornet any day.
I've heard that before.
It's funny.
Yeah, no, I got to fly on the F-16 at Shaw a few times, and the F-16 guys used to tell me never. They said the main rule of fighting a Hornet was never get slow with a Hornet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because as you said earlier, bringing his nose to bear, they can just bring their nose to bear so easily.
Yeah, and the Hornet has a candid-up gun too. So if you're thinking F-16s, you're like, there's no way you can shoot me now. Actually, we're already shooting you.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Steve. Are you here, Steve?
Yeah, hi Renaud. Thanks very much for a great talk this evening. You've mentioned several times about the extremes of weather in Canada. How much does that jeopardize your normal training missions, if the weather is really severe out there?
So we'll have temperature and weather limits under which we will or won't go for training missions. The main thing is there's definitely a period of like really adverse weather. I want to say probably starting in late October and all the way until late March. During those periods, what we'll do is that we'll typically deploy to the United States twice for a 3-week period. Once right before Christmas, and one around February. So I actually just got back from Davis Mountain in Arizona, where we're doing our winter training right now, because the weather here is just dreadful. On the operational side, though, then the way that we'll deal with weather is by just accepting a higher level of risk and a higher level of engagement than we would if we were flying, say, in Europe. The Hornet is quite reliable. The main issues are cold and hydraulics / electrical issues. But once the jet is started, it will go. It's the advantage of having a twin engine airplane and having a giant Navy hook on it. We can pretty much land anywhere.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you.
Yeah,
We've got a question off Mal now. You're on mute at the moment. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for coming along tonight. It's been very interesting. Sorry a bit late joining you. My one question is, what's the worst situation you've been in whilst flying?
I think the closest I ever got to ejecting was in the F-16 coming back from sortie at TLP in Spain. And so my nose landing gear was indicating unsafe. So I didn't get the green light for the nose landing gear. So I'm like, I'm about to land without a nose landing gear. And on the F-16, if that happens, if the front of the airplane bends, then you can't eject anymore because the canopy is going to get jammed. It won't come off, and you can't go through it. It's way too thick. So that's the one time where I actually touched down and had my hand on the handle. as I started pushing the nose down and going like, is it going to hold or not or whatever? Turned out it was actually a landing gear indication failure. The micro switch in the landing gear itself that clicks that light green was broken. But there's no way I could have known that. So that was the one time I was like, probably need to get out now. The other one was on one of my very first scrambles for a NORAD mission, like actual scrambles. We had to go all the way north, meet a tanker, and it was in Canada in the middle of November. The weather was extremely bad. All the runways were basically iced over, so we had Cold Lake had cables, so we could go back to Cold Lake, or all the way to our deployed location I had cables too. And we had to meet an American tanker in the clouds at night in a snowstorm, trying to refuel. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Iron Maiden, but basically what the Air Force does to mess with the Navy is that they take their regular KC-135, and at the end of the boom, they put a very short hose with a very small basket, and then they just watch the Navy guys trying to poke into that and laugh. And so that was the tanker we had. First time ever tanking on that thing under NVG, trying to figure out how this works. And the first time I poke into the basket, I'm like, yay, cool, I'm gonna take gas now. And then the fuel flow starts, and that little hose just goes like wha-bang and just kicks you out. So I was like, oh wow, guess I'm gonna have to do that again. And I know that if I break the probe, if I break the basket, or if anything, I really have nowhere to land. So not a really cool feeling, but in the end, it worked.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm sure there's some people that will come up with some questions soon. But one of my question would be, if you had the opportunity to become the Canadian Air Force CF-18 demonstration pilot, would you go for it?
I would say it would depend on what kind of season I'm looking at. So like, for example, the current season, it's the 100th anniversary of the RCAF. It's going to be a busy season for the guy who's got the job right now. There's going to be a lot of shows. He's going to be gone a lot. I have an almost 8-year-old son now, so I wouldn't want to be gone for the entire summer. If it was a benign season, nothing really special happening, I would say yes. And if I think what would end up blocking me from doing it is that right now I've got too much work. I'm a squadron supervisor. I'm a major. They actually need me to be there to do supervisor stuff. And if I'm gone all summer, then who's going to be the operations officer? So I'd say yes, but it would probably be shut down by my CEO.
Of course, but we can be proud of your display you did when you was in the Belgian Air Force, your display, which is very energetic and, you know, quite unique. So we can be proud of that. So at least you've done that. And I've got some more questions coming in now. So we've got Robert Thomas.
Hello again. Yeah, bizarrely enough, the CF-18 is coming to RIAT this year at Fairford for the 100th anniversary. So it'd be good to see it. So in terms of flying, obviously, airspace, NATO airspace is very congested. I'm sure over Belgium it is. This small country, airliners, air routes. Canada is massive, as you say. Within the confines of having a multi-million-pound plane that you're sitting on, do you have a bit more free flying in Canada that you can do in terms of routes to destinations, etc.? Is it a bit more? Is there a bit less of a obviously there's safety clearly, but is there a bit more tolerance to do a few more things that you would not be able to do in Belgium because it's congested?
So if you look at instruments flying, it's pretty much the same, just flying down airways. And whenever you get close to a major city in Canada, you're into a congested airspace. You're landing into like a complicated civilian type airport. So that doesn't really change much. The one thing that's incredible here in Cold Lake is that we have the Cold Lake Air Weapons Range. It's one of the biggest airspaces, like free ground to unlimited airspaces in the world. And then the other thing is, in addition to that airspace, we have one of the largest live shooting ranges in the world here. We have fake airfields, columns of tanks. All of those can be attacked with live weapons. So just like it's an incredible playground that we have here, and it's literally you just take off, stay with tower. When you're done talking to tower, switch to range, and then you're there. There's nobody you need to talk to. There's no airspace you need to go through. It's all like VFR airspace from here to basically the Northwest Territories, which is like 500 miles away almost. So that's awesome. That's awesome. And we're into a modernization and revitalization process now for the range itself, the infrastructure, the whole airbase infrastructure with the arrival of the F-35, and probably a revival of exercise Maple Flag that was interrupted in probably 2017 was the last one. As we're now going into that giant transition to 5th gen new infrastructure, new airspace. So yeah, we've got a great airspace, and it's going to be even greater.
Sounds good. Thank you.
We've got another question from Todd.
There we go. Well, you kind of just answered a little bit there. I couldn't remember what Canada's future was for the fighter program, whether they were going to go with the Super Hornet or the F-35. But it sounds like you guys are going with the F-35 now. Is that something you want to stick around for, or will that be after your time? Maybe that finally comes in and gets fielded.
Yeah. So we signed for the F-35 in January of 23, and the contract is for 88 airplanes. So it's a large fleet. We're going to need a lot of pilots to fly those, so that's great. The first jets should be delivered in late 2026 is the latest, kind of the latest timeline. We're going to need to set up an instructional facility in Luke first, and then maybe bring it back to Canada. So yeah, I'm definitely in the window to go and fly the F-35 for Canada. I have enough longevity still because I signed a 25-year contract with the RCAF. So my full career is, yeah, I still have 17 years to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'd be something I'd be really interested in. Now it's the military, you don't decide, you just ask, and then you see what they tell you you're doing. But I would, yeah, I'd welcome that. It'd be fun. It'd be an interesting combination, I would say, of an F-16 and an F-18, as it integrates both, lessons from both of those jets, plus the added stealth 5th generation sensor fusion thing. So yeah, that'd be a cool experience.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks. I think that's my last one for tonight, but thanks.
So we've got a question from Colin now. Hang on, Colin.
There we go. Button. Are you looking to go up with the Red Arrows this year as they're over your way?
So the Red Arrows are doing an Eastern Canada tour. So we have an air show in Cold Lake coming up this year, 2024, for the 100th anniversary of the Air Force, and we'll get the Frecce Tricolori coming our way. The Red Arrows will be in the East, and it's after our air show. So it's around August and September, I want to say. One of my good buddies, Bondi, John Bond, who's the leader of the Red Arrows, he was the Tucano demo pilot at my very first show in Duxford, and we stayed good friends. So might swing east and go say hi to them.
Yeah, say hi to Red One. Second quick question: it's quite cramped in the F-18 and F-16 when you've got your cold weather gear on, and you're a bit like the Michelin Man. How easy is it to use the piddle pack?
It takes practice. It's no kidding. That's another thing that I try to instill to younger pilots is like you gotta be comfortable using that thing in flight, because at one point or another you're gonna need it, and you don't want that to be the time that you really need it and you can't do anything else and you've never used it before. So I'd say just practice it. You want to figure it out, go into a simulator and just train how to unstrap and use the contraption, and then when you need it in flight, then you'll be comfortable. It's not going to be the first time. Like I've developed a pretty good technique while flying in Afghanistan because the mission was very long and we had a lot of kit. Some people never ever use it. That's what it is. Like I know I have a bladder that's about an hour and a half long, and after an hour and a half, I need to do two things. I need to use my piddle pack, and I need to go to the tanker. So,
Excellent. Okay, cheers. Thank you.
We've got a question from Neil.
Hello again. Just a quickie. Last year at Waddington, at an exercise called Cobra Warrior, the Canadians were there with Hornet. Were you part of that exercise? And what was their job there?
No, so I wasn't. Our unit from one of our units from Quebec did Cobra Warrior. I want to say it was 425. And I was already here at 419 Squadron training on the Hawk. As far as I understand, they had a great time, but I haven't talked to them since.
Okay. Nice to see them, by the way.
Thanks.
Obviously, I said to you I'd let you know when we get to the hour point. Have we still got enough time?
Yeah, I have a student graduation here in about 20 minutes. So I got about 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna have to let you guys go. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. You've been perfectly generous with your time. I did, we did say about an hour a bit, so I've got quite a few questions coming in, so we'll make sure we don't get you late. But next up, we got Phil Rice.
Yeah, you designed the scheme for your demo pilot, for your demo for the F-16. How long did it take the painters to actually strip it down and paint it up for you in your design? Was it a long process or not?
Yeah, it wasn't short. I want to say, I don't remember exactly, but I want to say it was about 2 months. It was quite complex, and they need to work with basically one color at a time, just like if you're painting rooms. So there's a lot of masking involved, and so yeah, they were busy a while.
Yeah, you didn't ever have to tell them to get their asses into gear then.
Yeah, no. They worked the entire time. The one thing that's interesting about that paint scheme is, so the entire bottom of the airplane and then some of the accents are a silver, kind of like shiny reflective paint. That actually has bits of metal in the paint, and so we had to design it in a way that it wouldn't interfere with any of the antennas, radars, radomes, GPS radios, or other bits of the airplane that basically can't take that kind of metallic paint.
Sure. Thank you. I'll let somebody else go now because you've got a few waiting and you've not got long left. Thank you.
Clive.
Oh, Renaud. I've just been reading an article today about a lack of instructors in the Canadian Air Force. Is there a problem in the Canadian Air Force with a lack of instructors and a lot of pilots, a lot of veteran pilots leaving the service?
So yeah, it's a bit of the same story everywhere in I would say NATO. Right now, the airlines are on a hiring spree. Salaries on CV side are usually higher than what they are here, and so yeah, a lot of people with enough experience to transition to an airline job are choosing to leave. On our end, the main impact is that the instructors that are left just end up working more because we can't afford to produce less pilots. So we're still maintaining the same tempo, still producing as many students almost as we used to. But the few instructors we have left are just working quite hard. So one of the things that Canada did was open the program I was recruited under, and it's still open right now. But it is definitely a challenge.
Stuart, you've got a question now.
Yeah, good evening. Apart from your own display, who do you like watching? Have you got a favourite display team out there that you personally like watching?
So, like I said, we were really close to Rafale demo, but I want to say my favorite demo while I was on circuit was probably the Swiss Hornet. Their team was excellent. Like they had great guys, and their Hornet display was really like one of a kind. Like the combination of precision, which is very Swiss, but also kind of like that artistic feel for their demo, always really impressed me. And as far as teams, I want to say the South Korean demo team, the Black Eagles, was probably the most impressive team demo I've ever seen.
Right, thank you.
That's actually one of my favorite, the Black Eagles.
Oh yeah,
my favorite display teams.
It's incredible. I remember the first time I saw them at RIAT. At one point, it just all go up, and I'm like, "What are they doing now?" And they're just like, there's smoke going, and they're like flying all over the place. And I'm like, "Oh, they just drew a South Korean flag in the air, and it's now floating off." All right.
Just very tidy and neat and precision. It's just, yeah. I really enjoyed that.
And an impressive jet too.
Yeah.
Like basically a mini F-16, but like very, very agile, really impressive.
Yeah, stunning. Anyone else got any other questions? I think everyone's all questioned out at the moment. But that leads me just to ask you, I'll get one in just in case we've got 5 or so minutes, in case anyone has any. So once you leave the force, do you plan to go to the airlines, or is that you done? Once you finish that, you don't want to do, would you consider private pilot's license? Will you still fly light aircraft, or once you've left, that's it, I'm done?
So right now, like I said, when I signed with the RCF, my goal is to go 25 years. By the time I'm done, I'll be 58. So I think once I'm done, I'll be old enough. I don't think I'll want to fly airlines. The only civilian pilot job I would consider would be something like a private jet pilot, something like that, or maybe like a PC-12 light turboprop type thing. I'm not attracted at all to the airline pilot's life. I would probably consider a commercial or a private pilot's license, just because flying here in Canada is just so awesome. There's so many small airfields, probably a float rating because there's so many lakes here. That'd be the thing. The things that we do have a lot here. We have a very successful contracted adversary training company called Top Aces. That's actually Canada based. They'll hire a lot of veterans. So if I really still feel the need, I know I can probably try to go and fly for them. But I think by the time I'm done here, I'll be done.
Cool. So I've got a question from Colin now.
I found a new button this time. What's your call sign and what's the story behind it?
Oh yeah, so it's actually quite lame. So my sign is GRAT, GRAT. My last name is Thys or Thys, Thys. Gratis in French, gratis means for free. One of my instructors thought it was a hilarious play on words, and that just stuck. There is no story behind it or anything. It's just that.
Ain't that the way?
Yeah, like we can all be named Maverick, you know. Like.
Cheers.
Okay then. Before we let him go, does anyone have any further questions? No, no one. Okay, I just want to thank you very much for sparing your time for us tonight. It's been very enjoyable hearing your career, and also thank you for your time gracing our skies with your F-16 between 2012 and 2014. And thank you to the Belgian Air Force, because it hit me quite hard not being able to see the F-16 again perform there, which I think is one of the best European displays on the circuit. And also me growing up since 2005, currently actively going to air shows and stuff. So I will miss it, especially the Duxford Autumn shows back in the day, and Biggin Hill when they were there, and etc. So I just want to say, thank you for entertaining us, and thank you for your talk tonight, and I wish you all the best, and take care.
Thank thank you guys for having me, and then yeah, thank you for your kind words. It's definitely the end of an era, and that's kind of how it feels. And I hope the Belgian Air Force will have a little bit of a celebration for all of us former demo pilots. But and then well, next to that, I hope I'll be invited. But we'll see. Guys, have a
Thank you
good
very
one.
much.
Yeah,
Have a
take
good
care.
Thank
Safe
you.
flying. Look
Thank
after
you very
yourself.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Matt.